All right, I'm going in again. So I just streamed the dominance submission, snowplow one. And because I actually took this out of sync, I am going to read the middle section and um get us back, I don't know, I guess in chronological order here. One thing I just want to mention at the top of this is that for folks figuring out, it's like folks who receive the book often are like, I mean, it's a textbook, it's huge. And there's kind of like a sense of overwhelm where it's like, how do I approach this? Because I think the thing is, and this is something that I'm trying to increasingly talk about, which is that the idea that this is not a start to finish, like when you read the book, it'll be, like it'll have happened for you, that this is more of a reference for a process. So one way that this can be used in a very practical, like immediate benefit way is to just use it as kind of a like divining rod to ask a question, or just say like, what do I need right now? And just open it randomly and see where your eyes fall and read that section. And I do that. I actually do this with the book, and folks who also have done this find it to have the same kind of effect I do, which is like it tends to take me to something that is very relevant. So, some of the other ways that the book can be used is to just give yourself 10 minutes a day and read, even if it's chronologically, just read one section. And this is not, I mean, this is, and what I mean by one section is I mean just one section, one column. And there are practices in chapter 11 which support like a holistic physical check-in. So on 272, there's the body mind tune-in, which is like probably about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and can just really kind of bring us like inward very quickly. I used that a lot when I was writing the book. And even just practices, I think it's on 274, and the preamble on it is on 273, which is the what is it called? I forget what I call it, but it's a really quick way. So it's the is it the classic diagnostic chart is to actually assess a situation and go through the different considerations within the situation and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 to really find out what aspect is drawing the most charge, and to be able to address it accordingly instead of just reacting emotionally to the thing that has the emotion that's arising, which is actually different than the specific aspect as it relates to the hub. A lot of really good, nice success stories with that, and that's really fast. Like if you've had a situation at work and you're trying to get your bearings, is to do that. Anyhow, all right. So shaming, criticism, and failure. So it's devastating to be shamed for behavior outside of one's developmental capacity or outside the reasonable scope of awareness. When we're ashamed, our senses deaden to protect us from the hurt of losing our sense of dignity and ultimately self-worth. The voltage of yelling, slapping, and isolation as punishment causes distress by invading a child's physical and or emotional boundary. Toddlers are messy and self-centered. Altruism and selfless acts come later when the brain and the nervous system further develop in the fourth hub. Rambunctious toddlers can be overwhelming and can become outlets for frustration, even for well-meaning parents. A toddler is not yet capable of considering that criticism and judgment are subjective and related to the emotional state of the accuser. But if shaming happens early and often, it creates a chronic shadow of what some psychologists call toxic shame, a constant fear that the other shoe is about to drop. The implications of making mistakes become impossibly high when we rely on external approval for identity and power. With toxic shame, Low quality work, mistakes, and imperfection come to represent that are the poor quality you are of poor quality, a mistake and imperfect. The pressure for perfection can be excruciating when so much is on the line. I'm going to reread that again. The implicate so The implications of making mistakes become impossibly high when we rely on external approval for identity and power. With toxic shame, low quality work, mistakes, and imperfection come to represent that you are of poor quality, a mistake, and imperfect. The pressure for perfection can be excruciating when so much is on the line. This understandably interferes with trust and happiness. The painful experience of having joy repeatedly ripped away without warning is hard to reconcile. As a protection, we may either drive ourselves to burnout trying for so called perfection or decide that it's pointless and not even try to trust in achieving satisfaction. So, perfectionism, as it relates to shame, when every single action that we have is capable of representing ourselves holistically. As a child, to be shamed, actually, there's just we just don't have the capacity to differentiate. So, something that we do is who we are. Because in toddler land and in third hub, what we do is our identity. So, when our actions in this developmental time are shamed, it comes to represent holistically who and what we are. So the way to outrun that is because we know it isn't true. If it was true, it wouldn't hurt anymore and we would just surrender to it. It would be like, "Yep, that's just how it is." But there's just something that continuously will not stop speaking up internally. There's a part of us, there's you call it it could be called an inner child or an inner knowing, or that just is like, "This isn't right." And that's what that voice, that knowing is not letting won't give up on you. It won't give up on you because it's just this isn't true. And perfection and seeking perfection is the idea that we could disprove shame through action. So we're stuck in this, it's like the holding pattern in this is really being stuck in doing as a representation of our entire worth as a is it like a soul in a human being, and our soul will not stand for it. So yeah, I mean, so it's the thing where it's like, back to the stakes being so high. I mean, where you get this high performance mentality because it's so personal. To be associated with bad work would be like further validation of something that is already so painful and feels so out of alignment. We don't really have that verbiage for it. So it's just pain. But the lack of alignment, shame, the fact that the shame is just it's not correct. Like it's not real, just that it's like, so there's just more pain. And the pain, one of the things too with pain is that, especially this type of deep pain, is that it buries itself. So it just creates kind of like a frequency. It's sort of like, the telltale heart kind of thing, where it's just like beating in the depths of our psyche. So I'll continue. So burnout and fatigue are natural outcomes of interruptions in this hub. A person with a stance of a collapsed midsection, think of Charlie Brown, is the physical act of shame. Like crimping a running hose, the flow of energy in the body is blocked. The collapsing of the torso, shrinking, physically expresses a sense of defeat and fatigue. We become easily tired, tense, and stressed if the torso is crimped or compressed and struggle to access our energy. Combine low energy with a perceived drive for perfection to outrun shame, and burnout is only a matter of time. The symptoms of burnout are exhaustion, anxiety, insomnia, decreased motivation, becoming excessively emotional, and having hair trigger anger and frustration. The somatic practices and exercises below work on strengthening a centered, upright midsection. Yeah, and the thing is with this too is that with in a state of burnout, as it's driven already by low self-worth and ultimately shame, is that the symptoms that arise that are actually the product of the shame now get used by the, like, adaptation. Because the thing is the adaptations are, like, I don't wanna say that they lie, but because they are tuned for survival, they survive. So by surviving, they rationalize themselves into existence, and the fact is that at one point, these behaviors in one way or the other like, corrected us so that we could survive and optimize with us with the best that was available in a given situation. So now if you have shame running the, like, the show, I guess, nothing better is coming up, um, then it literally whatever you put in front of it, it can use as material. And fighting shame as being like, "Stop being ashamed," actually, that doesn't work. I think the thing is, like, respecting and admiring, like, how it came to be, and even relieving it of having to play such a significant role. And understanding that shame itself is actually part of how we build trust in ourselves, and knowing that when it isn't chronic and it isn't toxic, shame actually is a correcting factor for doing something bad to somebody. So it's like if you're worried about being a bad person, the shame makes us believe we're a bad person, right? Like in the chronic sense. But shame itself is actually the natural, organic, corrective mechanism that makes us like the good person who takes accountability, like organically, for the things that we do wrong. Because the feeling of shame when we have wronged somebody, we've done something or hurt somebody, it's accountability. And as a acute response, it's very it's extraordinary in its elegance because it literally creates urgency around something until we resolve it and make it right. So we're not asking shame to go away, no more shame. Like I have no, it's literally like how shame operates as a chronic state is just a hijacked sensibility, and it's also, it's an adaptation that is, out like that really, is not providing service in that state. That shame actually is incredibly useful as an acute, organically arising response to life, as is fear, as is guilt, as all the shadows. So anyway, so that's it. That's it. That's it. Next one, we're gonna get like the next. Let's see, what do we have here? I'm just looking here. Whew, these are really tough. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to get through a bunch of these in one sitting. 'cause I am finding that it's kinda, like, hard to have these and, like, these aren't ones where I'm like, "I can't wait to sit down and talk about this." Like, these it's probably the toughest stuff in the book, really. I mean, how could there be anything worse than this stuff? 'Cause next is corporal punishment, which is, like, like, in writing the book, I really stayed away from like, capital T trauma that involves, like, physical abuse, um, but of course, it's like, pointing to it with, like, boundary invasion and also the human rights, which is, I think, like, page 25, 26 around there. Um, it's really beyond what I feel, like, comfortable addressing, but I also point to it as far as giving it respect as being something that deserves care, that is, trained and professional, and yeah, it's really special, like, one-on-one care that is deserved in the restoration process for physical and all abuse, but specifically as, like, with capital T trauma. So, anyhow, thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.